Welcome to Curly Convos. I'm your host, Curly Sid. Curly Convos is where raw discussions meet radical ideas. I'm Sydney, a 23-year-old Gen Z activist on a mission to spark change. I work in nonprofit spaces for reproductive rights, health, and justice. I'm a proud union member, a local leader, and a passionate advocate for racial justice and equity. This podcast goes beyond the headlines and surface-level conversations. We're here to ask big questions, challenge assumptions, and dig into the issues that truly matter. Each episode is a chance to think deeply, connect ideas, and see the world through a fresh lens. We'll dive into the conversations that are shaping our generation, from why voting should be the least radical thing you do to how fashion reflects social movements. Join Curly Convos every other Friday for bold takes, fresh perspectives, and unfiltered discussions that push boundaries and inspire action. Hey.
Hi.
That's a long ass intro. I probably should do something about that.
It is long. I think like one sentence you could cut instead of it getting a little too repetitive.
That's real as fuck. This is Sophia. I'm excited to have Sophia on the podcast. I created a podcast to bring my friends on the podcast. I'm
Sophia. I'm doing my undergrad at CSU. I used to work doing a lot of abortion advocacy alongside Curly. And we just passed Amendment 79, which gave Coloradans the constitutional right to abortion. So, yay. Since then, I have been doing some work with local organizations in Fort Collins, really kind of grounding myself in the BIPOC community up there, doing work with the BIPOC Alliance and the Latinx Community Action Network, really trying to reach other Latinx BIPOC folk out there for community organizing and mutual aid.
Slay. Sophia's a badass. Sophia also does chalk in her time with messaging, and I love that because, like, I did that.
Yes,
so.
I love chalking outside the plaza. It makes so many people upset with Free Palestine.
So, what have we been up to? Sophia comes and hangs out with us during the holidays, which is really fun. And we finally have a house with a guest room, so that's really nice. Yeah, we've been watching a lot of TV.
We have.
Making Sophia watch all of my weird movies and TV shows. But that's exactly what we want to talk about. So we've been watching a lot of, like, Rick and Morty. And Sophia originally didn't want to watch
No.
it. Why?
I didn't want to watch it because one of my friends was telling me about how she tried putting me on and I didn't want to watch it. And I was like, you're lying. I don't remember that. But why I didn't want to watch it is because the fan base around Rick and the Morty has always been, I've seen by really toxic masculinity. Like, the fan base that I encountered was people wearing Rick and Morty shirts were like the insufferable white men of the world.
Yes, I feel like the incels did take over Rick and Morty, and it's so upsetting. And that's what I was saying, like, when I was showing it to you, like, because it's so good, and, like, it is so nuanced and, like, political, and also, like, you watch Bojack.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's one of my
Bojack.
favorite TV shows. I've probably watched it, like, 7, 8
And I'm
times.
on my second round. Like,
Literally.
I'm rewatching it now.
Yes, and I feel like these TV shows have these, like, shit incel ass
fan
male
bases.
fan bases.
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't understand. Like, they don't understand that, like, the reason for characters like Rick or, like, Bojack is to show you, like, you're supposed to relate to them to a point. But then you're all supposed to recognize, like, oh, like, that's super fucked up. Like, every other episode, like, Morty
He does something.
so,
yeah, Morty's
like,
traumatized.
He's so traumatized.
Like,
he's so traumatized. And, like, I hate to be this person, but I think it does, like, connect to, like, the disconnect in our generation with, like, politics and voting. Kind of, like, them choosing not to see, or, like, us like seeing all the bad in the world, and so them seeing people like Rick or like Bojack and being like, yeah, I identify with that type of person, which is so easy to do. But like there's some hard lines when Bojack grooms
that
and almost
17-year-old girl,
literally. And then you see like in the later spoilers, if you haven't watched it, it's been over for years.
You should have watched it by now.
Literally. But like, yeah, even like seeing later like how it affected them as like adults, and the kid who's traumatized like from that experience, and who meets like Hollyhock later and like talks about it. Like I think that's like
and choosing like parts that what you want to ignore. And I think even if exactly like those incels who can relate to these characters, they're picking what parts they want to ignore as like what we would define as like really bad aspects of these characters, or like what they did, like what the line is. I think that line doesn't really exist for someone, especially when they can relate so heavily. They kind of want to also ignore those negative aspects, not only about the character that they relate to, but those aspects that are of themselves.
And it's so hard. I mean, I have done therapy, like both as a child, which really wasn't effective because there's things you are afraid to talk about.
Yeah.
But like in my adult life, I come across that a lot, and like it just having to see the bad parts and like sit with them and feel them and tell them that I see them. Like it's disgusting. I hate every single minute of it, but it's been really beneficial.
And that's what kind of Bojack draws on, is like there's no such good thing as a bad person or a good person.
Literally.
And that they have like I think one of the entire seasons is kind of focused around that exact statement, is that there is no such thing as a good person and a bad person.
It's kind of like another reason I showed you the other TV show with Chloe, with Don't Trust the Bitch in Apartment 23.
Oh, yes.
Is that, like, it really irritates me. Like, that show was canceled after 2 seasons. Well, because it wasn't going anywhere.
When did it come out?
I don't know.
It seems like 2000s, yeah.
12,
okay.
Or maybe earlier. But, like, people hate nuanced women characters.
Yes.
Who are like Rick or who are like Bojack. Like, they choose to not understand them. And
well, because we view women as two-dimensional. Even, like, the women like in our lives, like we view them as two-dimensional, just as our mothers or like as our wives or as our sisters. Like we don't really find depth in women.
Absolutely. I think that's growing up, especially as a woman, and seeing the women in your lives like as more than like your grandparents or like more than like your mother. And like I think when I wanted to write a memoir and started that process and like got my mom's side of the story, I really was like, oh,
it changed a lot.
It did. You guys will read that when I'm like 60, so don't hold your breath.
Look out for Sydney's memoir. 2060.
Such a slay. Oh, okay, so you sent me this article.
Oh, yes. So I've been hearing a lot of discourse on campus around Lily Phillips. And she is, correct me if I get any of these details wrong, she is a porn star or an OnlyFans?
Yeah, she's a sex worker.
Yeah, she's a sex worker, and she did like this 100 men in one day challenge where she slept with 100 men in one day. And a lot of what I was hearing about it from men I was around, they were talking about kind of how abused she must feel, and that she was like either a victim or a whore. And that, like, kind of doing something like, they said that someone doing something like that would kind of erase someone's sense of self and, like, I guess, dignity, and kind of, yeah, just kind of, like, victim or whore-shaming Lily Phillips a lot.
Yes. I also saw this discourse. I'm still on X. Nobody cancel me for that.
Say it's Twitter.
Literally. And I saw a lot of discourse as well, being like, could you imagine being her dad? Or, like, you know, or imagine being the 100th man in line. Well, anyway, Sophia sent me this article.
Yes, I found this article, and it's called "Men in the Lily Phillips Experiment Are the Real Victims."
I think that immediately triggered me.
Yeah.
Literally. I don't think anybody in this situation is a victim, because if you were to look into it any further, everybody had to give their real IDs
Yes.
and had to bring, STI tests.
Mhm.
Like, in every way, almost, that is consensual. At any moment, could they have been like, no, I no longer want to do this.
Well,
and
not only that, they had to pay travel expenses to go see her. Like, some of the men in the article were saying about how they spent over $1,200 on just flight tickets and hotel rooms.
Literally. And it also made me think, and we talked about this a little bit, but, like, fuck a fan, porn star raffles have been going on literally forever. What is the difference between sleeping with one person, a different person for 100 days, right? And that being 100 people, or doing it one time, making your millions of dollars, and then being set for the rest of the year. Like, I think it's so
One and
shamey.
done.
It is so shamey.
It is.
Literally nobody is. I'm so tired of the discourse. Like,
And I think that's just because there's so much shame around sex work in general. Is that, and I know that's what I think the article was trying to portray something different, but I think really it just comes down to shaming in sex work in general.
I know there's a country that, like, recently decriminalized sex work.
Oh, it's a European country.
Yes, but, like,
I know what you're talking about.
when you treat sex work like real work, the literal oldest profession in the world, it's not going anywhere. There are benefits to society. Like, it contributes to the economy. Like,
Well, and like it drops STI rates, like because with the legalization of it, you have to make sure your workers are protected. And what does that include? It means regular testing. It means adequate health care for women, having to come in and see doctors regularly. So it's, and like promoting safe sex practices.
I also think it gives people, like, more ownership over their
Autonomy,
own sex
for sure.
work. Like, yeah.
What I liked about the article is that it focused on men for a change, and that's why I clicked on it, because I was like, yes, let's talk about the men on this side of it, because I was so sick of the just only focusing on the woman. Because I do, like, if you want to say that she's gross, like, let's talk about the 100 men who paid thousands of dollars to have sex with the same woman as 99 other men.
In the same day.
In the same
literally.
day. I'm like, who were, like, what?
Yeah.
Why are we assigning
also,
grossness to the woman?
Why do you care? It really affect your life so much that, like, you have to sit on Twitter all day long and tweet about, like, are you just upset you didn't get picked? Like,
yeah, or you can't get laid, even with you paying for it. Like,
I love that. Slay, Lily Phillips. You were like, have you heard about Lily Phillips? And I was like, yes.
I actually didn't know her name. I just knew her as the girl who slept with 100 guys.
Yes.
Of course you follow her. I'm gonna have to follow her.
I love how I just put as this next bullet point, it just says, Oligarchy, what the fuck, America?
What the fuck, America?
Real. And I guess a heavier topic. I decided to not just jump in this time. This is a TikTok from Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. We're going to watch it.
Hey y'all, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley here to give you the tea on exactly what the hell is going on in Congress right now. Well, we are 36 hours away from a federal government shutdown. Now, mind you, we had a bipartisan bill, an agreement to keep the government funded and services running, but Elon Musk, the richest man on the planet, killed it. He called up his homeboy Donald Trump, and apparently Elon Musk controls the Republican Party. And so for that reason, the bill was killed. And listen, in 2019, I was here when there was a federal government shutdown. I remember how many federal workers couldn't pay their rent, were rationing medication. This shutdown, you know who's gonna feel the pain? You know who it hurts? You, everyday people, and the most vulnerable. Seniors, veterans, working families, hungry kids, y'all. The cruelty is the point. Just want y'all to know what's going on and who created this mess.
Period.
I've been seeing a lot like that. And then I saw this video from Bernie.
We are moving rapidly into an oligarchic form of society. Never before in American history have so few billionaires, so few people had so much wealth and so much power. Never before has there been so much concentration of ownership, sector after sector, power of Wall Street, and never before in American history, and we better talk about this, have the people on top had so much political power. We can't go around the world saying, oh, well, in Russia, Putin has an oligarchy. Well, we got an oligarchy here, too. And in this last election, in both parties, billionaires spent huge amounts of money to elect their candidates. Here in the state of Vermont, we believe we have town meetings, one person, one vote. That's democracy, not billionaires buying elections.
I feel like we've always kind of been in an oligarchy.
Yes.
And
well, that's what happens with capitalism.
Right.
Like, where the wealth is distributed, like, that's who has the most power.
Absolutely. And, like, I don't know why we're shocked about it
now.
Especially,
I saw this one, I think it was, like, a meme or something, and it was talking about, like, people questioning who's in the Illuminati and like what rich people and stuff like that control our government. And it's like, I think it's very obvious if you just look at the most richest people in the world. It doesn't have to be hidden under this Illuminati. It's just there. It's the people with billions of dollars.
It's under another Trump presidency. It's really come to light, like letting unelected President Elon Musk
yes
run the country and kill bipartisan bills that would help the American people, especially like with him now having ownership over an entire platform.
Yes.
And
controlling the media that we see.
Absolutely. And he tweeted a whole bunch of things.
Rigging the algorithm so that his tweets are the most prominent.
Even if you don't follow him, which is crazy. Like,
it's
going to
show up. Like,
follow Elon Musk.
And you still see his tweets.
I do. And even him tweeting, like, I will make sure, and like telling people, like, I'll make sure you don't get reelected if you don't kill this bill.
Well, calling out Republican senators and being like, if you don't vote for this, like, you're not going to see, like, in your 2 years, you're going to be out of here.
Yes, and that is just, like, silencing the American people. Like, those are the people we actually voted for, who were elected in. And for one billionaire, the wealthiest person on the planet, who you'll never have as much wealth as, to be calling them and telling them, like, I'll put my money towards, not letting the American people reelect you is scary. And I think that's where, like, this comes from now. Like, all of a sudden, it's so prominent. It's so in our faces at this point. Like, he's not quiet about it. Like, he was jumping in
I'm not MAGA. I'm dark gothic MAGA.
And, like, jumping in the shape of an X during
so cringy.
the election.
So cringy.
Yeah, it's cringy. It's out of touch. I don't care what anyone says. Elon Musk is only idolized by white men and because they think they'll be as wealthy as him one day.
Which, even if you are upper middle class, let's say you're making like $300K a year, you're still closer to homelessness than you would ever be to the type of wealth that Elon Musk has. Like, even if you're upper middle class, you are closer to homelessness. And that's just the wealth disparity in America. Like, we can see, like, looking at graphs of, like, what the actual representation of wealth is in America. And we see there is no distinction, really, between people in the lower class and the middle class anymore. There's no distinction.
We've been in an oligarchy, but the definition of an oligarchy is a small group of people who have majority of the power. We're more in a plutocracy right now, and I think that's more accurate. But the definition of a plutocracy is government by the wealthy, or a controlling class of the wealthy.
And that's such a better definition, because we still can elect people. I mean, we still have, like, our judicial branches and the checks and balance system that's supposed to uphold our government. So it's not really an oligarchy, but it's the Elon Musk who is controlling the people who are passing the laws, deciding which laws get passed and which not, and even which people get elected.
Absolutely. I kind of want to hear your thoughts on, like, what people should do next as, another organizer. In my first episode, I talked about, like, what I thought the next steps people should take are, but I am curious what you think.
Yeah. I think immediately after the election results, I went to a BIPOC Alliance meeting, and it really drew in a lot of community members. And what we talked about was exactly what are our next steps going forward under this new administration. How are we going to maintain the movement, if you will, on taking care of our people, and what roles do we play as in the movement? What roles do we have in sustaining each other in politics? I think a lot of it was plugging into those different organizations already that are existing. I see a lot of, we talked about this too, about people like trying to create a new organizations like ground up. And I think it's just, it's so much better to go where the momentum already is.
Absolutely.
And putting your energy into things that are already doing the work, like the Working Families Party. Like,
Period. Shout out to Working Families.
Shout out Working Families Party. And like I said, like, I'm sure there's other organizations similar to the BIPOC Alliance in different cities that you can organize in and really like learn what your role is. I know for me, like, my role is political advocacy, at least for now, and is mutual aid, and is going out into the community with my Plan B and my different drug testing strips and Narcan and like food, and kind of dispersing information also for people, and working with organizations like to pass legislation that actually helps thousands of Coloradans in our states. And I have another thought, but I think it goes perfect with another video that you have lined up.
It is really hard to find your place in the movement. I think, like, being young, being a woman, being a person of color, or even being white passing like myself, it is really difficult to navigate, like, what is going to traumatize me further.
Yes.
And where can I actually be helpful? A lot of my journey, especially like when I was 18, 19, was like figuring out where I fit in as a white passing person in the Black Lives Matter movement. I do have the benefit of white privilege, and there's no denying that, and there's no ignoring it at all. And so it took me a long time to realize, like, yes, while I'm a marginalized person, I will never experience like what a black woman does in America. I will never experience what you do in America. And that makes me more of an ally, where my job is to uplift the voices of the community around me. I think a lot of the disconnect for like Gen Z white men is like hearing these types of things and feeling like I'm not seen, like, you know, you don't care about me or my issues. Everything we fight for, that is for the working class. Like, we can't view it as right and left anymore. Like, it is more up and down, and we have more class solidarity together than we do literally anything else.
And like, race was really a construct made up to divide the working class. And it was to divide poor people. And so then we came up with this system that made that gave white people more privilege over black and brown people.
Yeah. It is meant to divide the working class.
Yeah.
And poor people especially.
And I think because of how racism has evolved since things like segregation, it makes it really hard for even black and brown people to really vocalize what racism feels like now. Yeah. Because it is, like you're saying, like, you'll never know, like, how a black or brown person feels like, because it is on a day-to-day thing. I've had tons of, like, white poor friends, and there is a disconnect between, like, our lived experiences as different people, like, as a brown person and as a white person. And I struggle to, like, try to make a white person understand what it's like, because it's something that they will never experience.
Okay, and this kind of takes me into our next video.
If you're a white person who's anti-fascist, particularly a white man who's anti-fascist, the most important thing you can do to fight this shit is fight the other white people in your life. You and I both know that throughout the course of every day, we hear so much sideways shit about race and gender from friends, family, coworkers, passersby. And if you're letting that shit slide for any reason, you think they're a lost cause, you're scared of the confrontation, they're your family, whatever the fuck, you're part of the problem. And this is especially true for men, what I'm about to say. The right-wing white dudes who spout this bullshit all day have tapped into such a weak and pathetic version of masculinity that the only language they're able to speak or understand anymore is the threat of violence. And if you're a white anti-fascist man, that's something you need to be able to speak to. I'm not saying you got to get in a fist fight with everybody. They're probably not going to take it there because they're pussy. But if you're scared of that confrontation, if it makes your heart skip a little bit thinking about it, go take some boxing classes, take some Muay Thai classes, so you know that if it escalates, you can elbow somebody in their shit and still send a message. Because I'm going to tell you this right now. If you don't have the backbone to stand on business with your friends and family when they run their mouth, you definitely aren't built for the bigger cause. Every struggle for liberation in this country comes with the implicit understanding that you're probably going to die for it. And all of that violence starts with words, okay? Every time a fascist gets to run his mouth and spread his dumb fucking ideas and isn't worried about getting punched in his shit, he feels empowered to say it louder next time. So put your shoulders back, get in somebody's face, and stand on business, dude. You can go to all the protests and events and donate all the money and go to all the marches and be visible for the cause. But what's most important is the work you do every single day in your own life, talking to other white people who think they can run their fucking mouth and not get punched in it. So quit letting it slide. That's all I have to say.
I love that video so much.
Me too.
And like the first part, back to like what are our roles in the movement. At the BIPOC Alliance, there was white allies there. A lot of them talked about that they feel like their role in the movement is that discourse between even family members on correcting them what they say and like standing up for BIPOC people even when BIPOC people aren't in the room. And I think that's something that's not my role. My role is to know with all of like my history and my own personal experiences, I just don't have the mental energy or capacity in any way to try to educate white people. I tried I tried my best with some of my old white friends, hence old white friends. We're no longer friends anymore because I couldn't do it. And that's not my role in the movement. It's the role of other white people to defend BIPOC people.
And I also think, like, know when to pick your battles. Like, yeah, like, sometimes people can be educated, but sometimes people are literally just looking to piss you off. And a lot of the times when a white person wants a person of color to educate them, it's not education.
No.
It is to
and
argue.
It's to argue and to make themselves feel better, to have, like, I tried. I tried. Like, it just... My old roommate, like, she would ask me to be like, oh, am I a bad person? When, like, her white friends would treat me very poorly. And I'd be like, it's not my place to tell you if you're a bad person. And if you're questioning it, maybe you are a bad person. Like, and I'm not here to give you validation. I'm not here to make you feel better.
Literally. Also, like, read some Angela Davis. Read some Bell Hooks. Like, there are lots of people of color who... You
can turn to. There's the internet.
Yeah, it's not on your
don't burden
brown and black friends.
Don't burden black and brown people because you're uneducated.
Literally. And in 2020, I was 18 years old. You know, I was graduating. A pandemic was happening, and the Black Lives Matter movement was happening.
Yeah.
And I found my passion in activism and within advocacy, but that also meant, you know, I got to see some of the darker sides of the people I loved, my family. It created so much conflict outside of like the conflict I was having,
in advocacy.
In advocacy, it is scary to go toe to toe with the people that you love and their values. But I can say now, for almost 5 years later, it's a New Year episode.
Yeah.
It's not so scary anymore, and like we can have those conversations without them getting to a point where like I'm never gonna talk to you again. And like I learn as much from them as I do like teaching them, I think, in a way, like not because I think any of their views are correct.
Mm-hmm.
But because when you start to understand opposing views, you literally wrap around to what we were talking about, to like class consciousness.
Yes.
To like, we're not divided politically, we are just divided by class.
Yeah. And it's not even like white family members who are like that. Like, I have like my Latino family members who are fucking MAGA, who are like Latinos for Trump. And like they'll send me like Latinos for Trump like reels and stuff like that. And when I lived in like that household, like I did struggle like with my like father figure, like watching Joe Rogan, like me literally sobbing, like, why are you watching Joe Rogan? But I think a lot of, if I did still maintain contact with them, which I don't for not political reasons, for different reasons, but I think there would have been, I think, a change in their political and perspectives, moral perspectives, because I would argue that how you're politically inclined is how you're morally inclined.
I can't say that I wasn't really mad at my mother for voting for Donald Trump.
That's insane.
And then voting a Dem ticket the rest of the way down.
That's insane.
And then, like, this isn't a call out to her, but like, there was a huge pattern of that. Like, it wasn't just you know, my mom or your mom or the people you love. Like, it was a pattern in the country because people think, and I've been thinking about this a lot, but like, people think that they'll cancel each other out. Like, you can cancel out
votes.
Like Donald Trump. Like, if I vote for Trump and then vote a Dem ticket the rest of the way, then like I can cancel out some of the bad parts of Trump. And
yeah,
like wake up call. It doesn't work like that.
No.
Like, you. When we see Trump put loyalists, people who haven't been elected, like Elon Musk, into these positions of power in our government, like, there is no canceling out. When we see, you know, them pass legislation to strip nonprofits of, you know, their status.
Well, and like people in Colorado who voted for Trump voted yes on Amendment 79. And they think that affords them, I think that's really selfish to, you're like, I live in Colorado, at least I can have the right to abortion. But all these other people who have been negatively affected by the overturn of Roe v. Wade under the Trump administration, fuck you.
Right.
And if you think, if you're delusional enough to think that you voting yes on Amendment 79 and yes on Trump is going to not affect Colorado or affect how abortion is in Colorado, you're insane.
It is. It's absolutely, and I don't think they have that like thought process. Like, and we heard a lot of this in like 2020, and I think we've heard a lot of it. But like, if you don't like it, then just move, right?
Yes.
And I think we're gonna hear a lot more of that as under this Trump presidency. Well, if you don't like it here, just move to liberal ass Colorado, right? Like, we'll hear things like that, but like,
Colorado's not as great as y'all think.
well, like, what a luxury it is to be
able to move.
Right?
To move.
Like, to tell someone to move out of the country. Like, can you move out of that? Like,
No,
I
can't even move out of my apartment. I'll move on the streets.
Right.
I hate when people say that too, like, and I know it's like some people say it out of like, I don't know, like, I just want to move to Canada. I'm like, well, what about all the people who can't move to Canada?
Oh, can we talk real quick about, like, and I talked about this a little bit, but, like, Trump wanting to take over all of these countries and, like...
Oh, yes. Didn't he offer to buy Canada? And the Prime Minister was like...
He keeps calling the Prime Minister, like, you know, Governor of Canada, like, very disrespectful. And it makes me wonder, like, what our international relations will look like in the next 4 years, and, like, how many of those...
Well, I think we've already gotten a really good idea of what our international relations look like with the UN and with the Geneva Conventions since Palestine.
Absolutely.
Because we've seen... United States controls the UN. Yeah. You're telling me all these other countries voted for a ceasefire. Only 2 countries, Israel and the UN, Israel and the US said no ceasefire, and so there's no ceasefire. Yeah. Like,
it is wild.
We see who holds the power there.
Absolutely. And it's the billionaires in the United States.
Because they're not the richest people in the US. They're the richest people in the world.
Yeah. Well, also Trump, I feel like Trump is threatening, you know, like our international trade partners at this point.
Yes.
Like, it is a threat at this point. And we are lucky that they're not looking at it as an act of war. Him calling, you know, to annex Canada
Mm-hmm.
or like put
Which
these
that should
crazy
be.
tariffs on
But
the.
I mean, the
Yeah.
U.S. is such an imperial state. Love having absolute control, military control over the globe.
Yeah.
So what is Canada's defense, really?
Yeah, I saw this TikTok, and I'm saying that because I don't know how accurate it is, but it said something about like Canada at one point having like the strongest military on the planet, which I thought was really interesting. And it made me think about like the amount of propaganda we all kind of ingest, and like, of course, in school and whatnot, and like it'll take a lifetime for all of us
To unprocess,
undo a lot of the propaganda but it made me think like we've always been taught that our military is the strongest military.
We've won every single war.
Right.
What's Vietnam? Sorry, like we
Like,
call Vietnam a
what
win.
do you mean like we have terrorized countries. We are the only
We are a
country
terrorist
with
group.
military bases in other countries. Like
Mm-hmm.
we are absolutely not the superheroes of the nation.
No, and that's what they like the Marvel franchise. Like that's what they want you to think is that we're the
Right. And
superheroes
that's why
of the
they're,
world,
like, funded by
protecting democracy,
the
fighting
army.
communism.
Literally, that is why they are funded by the United States Army to make.
Which I didn't know
propaganda
that.
movies. Yeah,
I did not know that, which completely makes sense.
Yes.
Captain America, like, like what?
It's crazy because like in so many of those movies, they're fighting Nazis, and like at this point, like we are
the Nazis.
Like we have funded a genocide for over a year now.
And like the U.S. didn't even intervene in World War II with the Nazis and everything until Pearl Harbor, until we were attacked. So like, let's not get all the U.S. Like the U.S. joined in literally like the last stretch of the war.
Yeah. Thinking about propaganda, I was watching their newest episode, and they're talking about these like conspiracy theories, and like they do this sometimes, but like I've noticed it ramp up a lot, and I've noticed this just in general in like a lot of spaces, people talking more about conspiracy theories, a lot of which are anti-Semitic as fuck. I'm like, what the? I'm like, hello.
Well, like things like QAnon and like Jewish space lasers being like, and these are circulating because of representatives in our government.
Yes.
People like Marjorie Taylor Greene.
I had a Trump voter tell me the other day that Donald Trump is a pseudo-Jew.
What the hell does that mean?
And I don't...
What does that mean?
He's like, look at everyone in his family is married to a Jew. And I'm like, what does this have to do with literally... He's a fascist. Donald Trump is a fascist, and that's it. Like, let's not make it... it like, hello. And also, like... Please leave the Jewish people alone.
Yes. And that's like... We need to really inform or like at least know what is actually anti-Semitic. Saying things like free Palestine is not anti-Semitic.
No.
But like things like that they were saying is anti-Semitic.
As fuck. Hello. It's crazy. Yeah, just some of that.
Well, now our generation is like, we were yelling at like our parents and like grandparents of like, don't believe everything you see on Facebook, and here we are listening to all these ignorant people doing their like 60-second TikTok video, and we're like, yep, and then like say that information to like other people and like word of mouth, like with no fact checking.
Literally. And it's gotten so bad. Oh, and especially like with the moon landing, the earth is flat. Like all of the OG conspiracy theories never seem to go anywhere because it recirculates like every couple of years. I saw this video recently. It was like a flat earther guy, and he'd went, I don't know, wherever you can see like the earth curve. Yeah. And he made a video and was like, well, I can't prove the earth is flat. Like, I was wrong. Like, but honestly, like, I think
But he did the research to figure out that it was wrong. He was like, oh wait, I have figured out this is wrong.
But we were talking about that, like, people don't know how to source information anymore. Like the amount of Wikipedia I see in YouTube
even people
videos.
we watch, content creators we watch use Wikipedia,
which is crazy. Like I always taught that Wikipedia, anyone can change it, is not a valid source.
I remember being in 3rd grade and the teacher being like, write this essay, you can't use Wikipedia.
Right. Like I don't understand. So I want to talk about terrorism.
Yeah.
I want to talk about getting charged with terrorism.
What is terrorism?
Literally. So the definition of terrorism is an action or threat designed to influence the government or intimidate the public. Its purpose is to advance a political, religious, or ideological cause.
Interesting.
Yes. So I want to talk about this because I don't know if they wanted to or if they are charging
I know they are.
Luigi with terrorism. And I think that's absolutely crazy. Like, maybe second-degree murder. Maybe,
and it's not even like, what I'm confused about is that Brian Thompson wasn't even a political figure.
Right. And
no
so, like,
one had
why...
heard of Brian Thompson at all. He was a healthcare CEO. So
this goes
where
back
do
to
we...
our plutocracy.
Yeah.
Like, you're saying that CEOs are now political figures and how...
Why? Because they have money?
Literally. Like, they are these status government figures. That's absolutely crazy. And I feel like that's them admitting it a little bit of a way. I also feel like everything's backfiring. Like, their comms, and I'm a
so
little bit
bad.
of a comms girl.
They're making him a martyr.
They are. Like, they aren't making him look like he shouldn't do it at all. And I saw this video and it was like, well, now school shooters know that they don't have to shoot up schools.
They CEOs.
Right. Like, the perp walk, ridiculous. Like, every bit of it.
The security he has in court with like 3 officers standing behind him. Like, not even Jeffrey Dahmer had that level of security.
And it's ridiculous. It makes me think about, how much do you know about Ted Bundy?
A little, yeah.
Okay, so when Ted Bundy was murdering victims, innocent women,
mutilating them.
Yes, the police were trying to claim that, like, he was just good looking and that's why he kept, like, escaping, and he was just
Ted Bundy was ugly as fuck.
too good looking to capture. Literally ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I think what we're witnessing now disproves that exactly. And it's just police incompetence. Like, it was a great excuse for police incompetence.
And the police had pulled over Ted Bundy multiple times before he was actually arrested, doing some suspicious ass activity. And it wasn't because, the police officer was so wowed by his fucking good looks, okay? It's because he was a white man.
Period. He was a white man, and he was smart. He had a lot of greed, you know. Absolutely.
Charismatic, all the serial killer personality traits.
Yes. Okay, we're gonna watch this video. Going back to
Luigi Mangione.
Not one school shooter has been charged with terrorism.
Punishment just does not fit the crime at all here.
How do you feel about Luigi being hit with terrorism charges?
I don't feel terrorized by the action that was committed because I'm not a billionaire.
I want to know what America defines as terrorism, because I don't see that as an act of terrorism.
Luigi pleaded not guilty to the 11 state and federal charges brought against him. Now it's the state that's arguing that the shooting was an act of terrorism.
I'm a New Yorker. I live here in the city. I don't feel
I
terrorized.
think that they're trying to hit him with whatever they can to give him the death penalty, and I think that that's gross. What terrorizes me is the healthcare system.
This is by no means done to people that are out here committing mass murder. None of those people have been charged with domestic terrorism. One individual does one act on December 4th, and that somehow overrides and allows for all of this to happen.
literally. I love how she was like, I feel terrorized by the healthcare system.
Yes, and because
So
we are
real.
being, that's domestic terrorism,
Right.
is to...
And she's also right. Or they're like, no school shooter has ever been charged with terrorism.
No. And even we see school shooters, and they often carry manifestos that are linked to white supremacy, and they're often found, like, their online browser history is in, like, those like incel forums and things like that. And if that's the definition of terrorism, like you said, which is to carry out a political motive, so then why is it not terrorism if a school shooter goes in and kills their classmates in a political motive of being a Nazi?
Right. Or like, what about the incel men who have killed
Yes.
lots of different women?
The domestic
Because-
terrorism on women.
Absolutely. And that is absolutely political because of the amount of power feminine presenting people have gained in today's world. But I just thought that was crazy. That's a crazy charge. I'm not a lawyer, but I think that's wrong. I guess I want to end this episode by talking about, what are your goals for 2025? What are some projects
Yes.
you're working on? And what intentions are you setting for next year?
I think like those memes where it's like 2023 was the setup or something, like 2024 was the warm up and 2025 is the year or something, you know?
Every year. Every single year.
I think with 2024 I really focused on kind of like things like decolonizing, which is a term that I learned in college in my ethnic studies class, is and really kind of unlearning the white supremacy that is in our culture. And I think with 2024, I want to really, now that I've kind of built my knowledge on that, I can have a plan of action on how I want to go forward with that. And I think that really has been me immersing myself in the BIPOC Alliance, immersing myself with the few Latinx people who do live in Fort Collins.
Yeah.
But I really would like to continue doing things with abortion advocacy and anti-racism, especially as we enter this new administration. And I think building community is going to be my biggest effort, is building community.
I love that. That's a slay. I have one goal, and I've had it, but I knew I couldn't do it while we were working on the ballot measure. I want to dismantle, like, the age limits here in Colorado.
You've talked about that.
For House and Senate. I think if there's not an age limit one way, then why can't, an 18-year-old run to be a senator?
Yeah.
And even if they don't win, like, we should be able to run for the seats that represent us.
And I think I always see older people in the nonprofit space send out emails of, like, ageism around, like, being 60 and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, maybe you shouldn't be elected if you can't control your mind. So it is ageism to let young people have their voice heard and be running our government and being elected.
Yeah, my New Year's resolution, my goal is to delegate better and stop being such a control freak all the time.
Someone has to have control, though.
Okay, but my therapist might not agree. Thanks for doing a pod episode. I'm sure we'll do another one soon.
Yes. With our Luigi swag.
Oh, excited. Thank you for watching Curly Convos. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year's 2025.
Yes. Set some good intentions. Do some self-care.
Yes, self-care is resistance.
Yes, self-care is not putting on a face mask.
No.
All right. Well.
Yes. What's your fan base called? Do you have a name for your fan base yet?
No. There's only, like, one person who watches, and it's me after I post it.
Bye, Curlies. How about that?
I love it. Bye.